Hello everyone, it's Marcia Caradinza. I'm here on behalf of Scrappy Boy Stamps, and I wanted to do a quick video showing you 3 different ways, and this is how my daughter does it, so we adopted this, 3 different ways that you could use a stencil. And I know this has been done probably a million different times, but it never hurts to refresh yourself on all the ways that stencils can be used. So I am going to be using the newly released, it's called the Roach Background Stencil. And what's funny is when Sean messaged me, Mr. Sean messaged me about this bug stencil, he was hesitant about releasing it. He wasn't sure you guys would like it. I was ecstatic, namely because just the day before, I was looking for a bug stencil in my stash and I did not have one. So I was elated that he was releasing one, and I asked him if I could use it so that I could make a video to show how to use it. So namely, this stencil was going to release with our October release, I believe, next month, but please don't prove me a liar. I felt like this was a really great stencil to release for Halloween. I think I've got a couple little antler bits that didn't come out in the wash. All right. So again, this is already available on the site. Again, it's called that Roach Background Stencil. I tried to reduce the light on my ring light because it does create a reflection. So obviously, the most basic way to use a stencil is to simply ink it. And I'm gonna lower this down. All right, again, I apologize for that ring. I gotta figure out ways to get rid of it. So I went ahead and die cut some of the layering pieces from the bookmark and topper die set that was released last month. You guys know I love this. I did a live video with horrible audio, which is why I'm pre-recording this one, showing you all the different parts and pieces to this die set and ways that I used it. So I will be creating more bookmark or tags for a swap that I'm doing with some friends. So I die cut the base. Yep, so the layering piece, the layering piece from white paper, just to make it easier to show you different ways we could use this. All right, so again, I'm just gonna lay it on top. I'm doing this on the floor because I am going to be using my die cutting machine, and I was afraid that the pressure of it would be too great on my little antique secretary over there. So I've pulled some brown inks here. As you can see, I've got Walnut Stain, Ground Espresso, and Vintage Photo. This is the one I usually grab for the Vintage Photo. But I wanted to pull some other browns so we could kind of play with maybe some gradations or slap it on different color tones to make it a little bit more interesting than me just slapping a single ink on a stencil. So again, I'm just using my brush. I'm using that Ground Espresso first. I know here locally, people still like to call them cockroaches, but they do, I guess technically people call them water bugs. I live in coastal South Carolina, and we do have quite a few of them. People get all flipped out. Oh, I've got bugs. Well, you do live in coastal South Carolina, so there is no avoiding them. I could have used my magnetic thing, but I didn't want to haul everything down here into the floor. Okay, so that was just some Ground Espresso. Let's go in with some Vintage Photo and add some more. That. I'm not so concerned about the top because remember we have those amazing toppers that we can put over the top there. I don't think I need to add the walnut stain that I opened over there. I just want to get it in all those little bits and pieces. So again, this is the way that most people know how to use a stencil, literally with just some ink. What we can do to make it a little bit more interesting, I'll take that walnut stain anyways, and we'll come through and we'll just ink around the edge. My ink was a little heavy there apparently. Another fun thing I like to do with stencils, and again this is just with inking, is creating more dimension and layers by inking the stencil the first time, just like we just did, with your boldest layer of ink. Let me see if I can get it around. although I'll probably cover this up because I got that blue bead over there. So we take the stencil again, we shift it a bit. Let's see. Let's put it like this, and I can move it again. And then with whatever residual ink is on there, you just kind of create, you just very lightly ink. Again. So it's another fun way to kind of stretch your stencil. Oh boy, the timer's going off in there for the rice. I hope you know what to do with that. And you see, doesn't that look cool? So I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to add one more little cockroach down here so we can fill that space. So this is just the very basic using inks through a stencil, right? Okay. The second way we're going to do it is by dry embossing it. And this is, I think, one of those techniques that everybody should try if you haven't. I'm going to just kind of rinse off my stencil. I like to keep a bottle with just some water. I used to have a different one. Ooh. Oh man, I think that still has like some astringent or something in it. We have some orange blossom face stuff. I think that smells like that. Or my rose water one. I guess it still picked up some of that smell. I am not upset. It smells really good. I just was not expecting that. Okay, so we've cleaned off our stencil. And I was playing with my Sizzix Big Shot to get the sandwich right. Because typically I do this on my Spellbinders one. But that one is not here. And most people have. I mean, you can always figure out your own sandwich. But this is what it will look like when we're done. You see, I was testing it out. This is my scrap. It's really awesome. I really love the effect. It gives the effect of an embossing folder. But again, we're just using this. And think, this takes up far less space in your stash than an embossing folder. And you can use it in more ways, right? All right, so let's move this stuff out of the way. I'm going to pull over my really dirty Big Shot. And the sandwich that I discovered worked was to open it. So remove tab 1 and 2 down to that main platform plate, right? And then we have one cutting pad. This rubber embossing mat that seems to collect all the dusties that I have. Then you take your piece of paper, and where are my empty ones? My big ones. Take your piece of paper. In this case, we're using the bookmark. I am going to spritz it with water. That helps it helps allow the paper to get pushed into the stencil better than if you didn't. You don't have to do that, but we will in this case. Okay, I'm going to lay this on top. Apparently I have some ink on my fingers there. So let's see, I'm just going to get this on here. I'm going to try not to put this here or we're going to get a line there. So let's just try to keep this on the bottom. And again, I'm not concerned at the top because we're going to put a topper over it. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so again, we're down to that bottom platform base. I removed tabs 1 and 2. Bottom of the that platform base, one cutting pad, my rubber embossing mat, and then this thicker, I think it's called the impressions plate. It's thicker than a standard cutting pad. I tried to manipulate it to see if I could do it without that. This is the cutting pad on top. That's the impression plate. You really need the thicker one. You can play with shims and things, but this just works. Okay, so we're going to put that on top. And of course, I put the crank on the wrong side. So let's see how complicated I can make this for myself. Okay, we're going to feed it through. While I do this in a very weird angle. Let's pull this out of the way. And see how the water, I actually kind of like it because there was still some ink there on the stencil. And so as you can see, now we have this really cool, I'll show you on the other side too, because the relief, the negative of that is really awesome as well. But there's that embossed, buggy design. And this is what I was talking about. You'll get that line there wherever the edge of your stencil is. But again, we're going to cover that up, or you could align it so that it's somewhere you want it. Okay? Now, you could continue to ink this again. So you could leave your stencil where it was. Of course, I lifted it, so we're not going to remember where that was. I'm going to drag this back over here. And you could just take that same brush that has residual ink in it, and I'm just going to go like this. Lightly brush it over, and it should cling, if you will, to those raised pieces if you just go very, very, very lightly. I don't know if you can see the bugs starting to materialize. I'll show you closer. So I'm just kind of back and forth. And again, you could ink this up more however you wish, but just to show you this way to do it. Now, one thing I will say, when you are dry embossing your stencils, you don't want to go back and forth like you do when you're die cutting something. You don't want to roll it back and forth through because that rubber mat does squishy in there and it could mess it up. So you really just want to roll it through one time. I think that's similar to an embossing folder too, actually. You wouldn't want to roll it through more than one time. Okay, so hopefully that's enough so you can see it better. I'll lift it up. So can you see that? So that is a second way that you can use it, a stencil. Again, it's hard to really appreciate it. I've tried to crank the light down a bit so it's not too bright. But this looks really cool, and of course it's got that really cool tactile feature. All right, so another way we're going to use a stencil, and this is a really fun way, is letterpress style. So let me pull my big shot back over, but let me put the handle on my side this time. Then we're going to use that same sandwich where we have just that bottom platform. Okay, cutting pad, rubber mat. Going to lay one of our, where did Marcia put them? Here they are. The bookmark layering piece. We are going to spritz it with a little water, like we did before. And this time, to make it a bit more interesting, we're going to ink the stencil. Okay, I'm just going to lay it up here. Depending on how much detail there is, and again, they say, you know, I don't know if this is best for my ink pads. You could drag your ink pad along. We might use our brush and see if we can get it on there. I am going to just drag my ink pad, okay? For what it's worth. Or dab it on. We know we have just like the skinny layer, right? Actually, I meant to do this with a different color, so because I didn't want brown on brown, but since it's already on there, I forgot I pulled those other inks out. Okay, so with whatever ink color you want, we have our ink, right? We inked our stencil. Here's this. I had spritzed it. Now I'm going to spritz the stencil with that ink. This does get messy, okay, but it's well worth the effect. Let me shift this over a little bit. I'm trying to line it up so I don't get it everywhere. Although that's going to be too late, isn't it? Let's lay this down right here. Once you lay it down, try not to move it. Get that impressions pad. Lay that on top. And let's smush it through. Again, we're just going to go through one time. You don't really want to go back and forth. That can mess up what you're doing. Lift this off. Yes, there's going to be ink on there. We fully anticipated that. If you didn't, well, sorry about that. Lift that off and see how it pulled that ink, sucked it right into that paper. You get this really cool effect. The brown is cool because it kind of makes it look like dirt. So let me wipe this off a little bit because I really don't want to get it exactly everywhere. But if you see, so now not only did we emboss the buggies, although it's hard to see it in this case, emboss the buggies here, but we smushed the ink into the background. So we reverse inked our stencil. Now you could still, again, go over this. You could leave the stencil on there, figure out where it was. I think it was like right here, and then ink again. But again, this is just another cool way to use a stencil. via letterpress. So I hope you've enjoyed my 3 quick little tips on different ways you could use a stencil. Be sure to head over to the Scrappy Boy website, scrappyboy.com, pick up this month's new release, and don't forget to grab this Roach Background Stencil. I think you'll really like it. It will be great for Halloween, and that's exactly how I'm going to use it. I'll be sure to share those projects when I'm done with them. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I'll talk to you later. Bye.